My name is Shaheen Unis and this is my story. I was born in Pakistan, in Lahore, and my parents are business people, and it was the footballs they used to make, and they used to export to Britain. But after a few years, they went to Saudi Arabia and got work in the oil rigs. And we joined our father there, and we lived there for 2 years. And because of the studies, we had to come back. And my father continued working there. And then we were studying in Pakistan. On very young age, I got married about age of 16. I wasn't able to finish my higher studies. I joined my husband in 1967 here in Britain because he was already settled in London. It was quite strange because coming from Pakistan directly into different city and different country altogether, even though my background is quite advanced, it's not as we were coming from the village. I have seen the life, but still leaving my brothers behind and my father. My mother passed away when I was 13. I was very close to my brothers. And that was the hardest time for me, to leave my brothers and my father behind. And when I arrived, my heart just sank, and it was quite hard. But I managed, and used to dream about my father and my brother because I was very close to my father as well. Kept on writing every little stories to my father. And he kept on saying, don't do this, do this. He was my advisor and a very close friend, because I was finding it difficult to make friends here. Started working after 3 weeks arriving in Britain. And that was an experience. And I think when I joined the factory, it was a jewelry factory, and being very young, learned very quickly and started doing the jewelry bits, designing them. And they started saying, right, do 12 of these, do 12 of these. And that was really encouraging. And that's where I got all my encouragement, is where whatever I was doing it right. I did go back to Pakistan after 5 years, but unfortunately my father wasn't in Pakistan. He was still in Dubai that time. And when I saw my father, I didn't recognize him because he has lost all his weight. And it was rather sad for me to see him sort of melt away. But it was nice to see him just for a couple of hours, and went back home and stayed there for about 10 months. And but it was a very hard experience the first time when I went, and being parents not being there for you, and staying with the in-laws. But I had to stay because Mr. Unis was getting into the transaction period, as he came from London to Glasgow. And Glasgow was something which was extremely new city. And he started doing the buses, and again it was to adopt the day and the night shifts with the young child, with myself. But it was, I think I just wanted to get on with my life. I just didn't want to look back or either complain it to my father and what was happening, because whatever the saving we were making with the child on our hand was very, very hard. And we had to support our mother-in-law and father-in-law as well, with the kids on their hands. So that's where I got this, as losing the mother on first hand, looking after my brothers, and then coming back here and then looking after my in-laws. And I think it just kept on. It never was as thinking about myself, what I really wanted. I just had to carry on working to do better and better for them as well as myself. I was working 40 hours and I was getting only £8. And I think up to 1973, the money was very, very, very small amount. They were paying about, when I was working in Edinburgh, it was 34 pence an hour. So, I mean, the amount of work we have done to get on with our lives was really hard because we didn't have had our own house. We were living in rented premises, and to do the sharing the kitchen and the bathroom, and when you need, if you're having a shower and or a bath, you need to really feed the meter first before you you could have a shower. So these kind of things that you remember and you value it now is how much people who have come to Britain and how much they have suffered and how much people have the luxury of life now and they're still complaining. I had my first son when I was 17, after 1 year of my marriage. It was hard. We used to pick him up in the buggy and take him to the babysitter because the snow was so high in London that time, and we just had to take him. It was so cold. We just didn't know it was cold or hot. The weather wasn't matter. Now people talk about weather, but those days there was no transport, and we were asking somebody to please help us to take us to the factory because we were paying him a certain amount of money towards his petrol. And Shab's been only 2.5 months when I went back to work. I think I do sometimes regret that as the needs of my in-laws and myself, as I haven't been able to give a lot of time to my boys. Yet I now do advise some time to my daughter-in-laws is you must spend some time with your children because I think that's the time to give them your love and affection. Sometimes when the children turns around and say, Mom, you haven't spent a lot of time with us. So I just feel guilty sometimes. But otherwise, I tried my best. Thank God I could speak English, and that was no barrier for me. So I could speak to people, and it was easy. I mean, I'll give you one sort of a view. When I used to go and go to work, and I was feeling a bit sad one day, and one of the gentlemen probably looking at me every day when I was going to work, and he stopped me. He said, "You're looking very sad, Mrs. Unis," and I said, "No, I'm not." "No," he said. "Yes." I said, "Well, I have a little problem in my tenancy where I'm living." And he said, "You can come and live with us." And he was an Englishman, and he actually sheltered us in his house with the child. And that's what I feel is an acceptance, is when you have no help from anybody else, and there is a person standing there on the road for you to come and join him. And that's what I commend. After 2 years in London, because my sister-in-law was living in Glasgow and she lost her first child, and she was quite depressed. So Mr. Unis decided we should go and join them. They had a business in Glasgow which was called Shahnaz, and it was doing very well, and he said, "You can come and join us." But Mr. Unis decided not to join his brother-in-law, and he joined the buses. And I think that was quite a tough time, is because we joined them, we were living with them, and yet we had a child as well. So we sort of saved up, and we bought a one-bedroom flat in Kelvin, and that was quite challenging as well. And after that, when brother-in-law decided to move to Glasgow after 2 years, he then again offered Mr. Unis to come and join him in Edinburgh. So he joined him, and then that's the time when I had to go to Pakistan because we had no premises to live, because they decided to move from Glasgow to Edinburgh. That was again a tough time living in Pakistan for 10 months. Pakistan, when the hot weather and it's really hot, and you just start hallucinating because it's too hot. And especially after 5 years of having cold weather around you, it was quite hard for the children as well. So we had to bear it. And after 10 months we came and we started living in Edinburgh. Mr. Unis rented the premises. And then by that time he decided to open up his own restaurant on the Rye Road. And So I started helping him. Even when I was helping him, I had to learn more about the restaurant and the Scottish dishes as well. So I joined one of the Scottish restaurant, and I said, right, I'm going to learn it from you. And I was working with the chefs in on Tall Cross restaurant, and now it's finished. But I started working, and that's where I was getting 34 pence an hour. And they were making a huge amount of money, but that's what I was told. And when there was no work, I mean, I just couldn't believe they made me clean the floors and scrape the floors as when there is no work. But I never said no, because I was in a learning curve and I needed to learn as how to do things. And that's helping me now, is where I was helping them. So when I learnt it, and I moved on to my own restaurant and became my own chef and started training the different chefs. We introduced lots of things as well. People were making rice, we were using microwave, we were using hot plates. So that's where I've learned is how to do things faster and how to produce it commercially, because people were quite happy. We had queues on the door, and we needed to serve them fast as we can. By that time, there was such a demand for pakoras and lager. People will have, and this, you were not allowed to sell pakoras alone because they were very little amount of money. So people, one of our colleague came and he said, "Why don't you sell pakoras at the shops?" So there was, our one first shop was Ben Hur in Stockbridge. We started giving him the pakoras, and that's where we just couldn't stop. People just wanted pakoras, and that's where the idea came of the mass production of pakoras. And because we had a partner in the restaurant, Mr. Unis said, no, we will do it from the house. And the house became so smelly of the pakora, because it's a huge smell for the neighbors as well as for ourselves. We had to, after 3 weeks, we had to go and rent another premises. We were at Dalry Road. We bought one shop, the second, the third, the fourth, and it was growing so fast, we just couldn't cope, because obviously we were adding lots of other items as well, and we were employing mostly Asian people because they had the expertise to produce. We have about 22 people who are working for us, and thank God it's about £800,000 business we have. Touch wood, may it continue. I just love my work. I enjoy the results, and I think that's what gave me what I am today. And I don't want to lose my identity. Some people will be very shy on saying is we do so and so business, but I'm quite proud what I do. I employ people who are widows, divorcees, retired ladies. You know, we have encouraged them to come out of the houses and come and work and learn the techniques. We have taught them health and hygiene, health and safety. We've given them the certificate, and they just treasure those certificates, is because we have translated for them and they were able to sit on the exam. And that's something that gives me a great pleasure, because I'm helping those people who will never go and work, and they will be burdened on the government. And people who are able to now support their family, they can go on holidays themselves. There's such an encouragement for them. So they become independent, and I'm really quite happy and very proud for them. It was a fire 2005, because it was a fault of the electric. Thank God we were up and running in 3 days. Again, the council was very helpful. They said, we will provide you the small unit. You can move there. You can have a fridge there. And plus my staff, who's the general manager, ex-banker, who has actually kept all the records of the accounts and insurances and everything. And he was able to get the money for us. And I think we did feel it at the time, but after that we felt maybe it was a blessing in disguise. The whole factory was made into new. Council helped us again to do that, even though we had to put a lot of our funds from our pocket, because the insurance is never enough. But people were there, and I must thank them again and again, who actually supported. They were my competitors, but that time they were there for me. I learned to cook from my grandma, and she used to cook for me as well, as because I think there is a little story behind it. Is I saw her cooking big pots. How I saw her, because I was five brother and one daughter, and a bit of spoilt, and I would say, right, I wanted to distribute some food to people, and she'll say, okay, well, I'll do it for you. And she will go out, put the bricks on, put the big pot on the bricks, and cook massive amount of rice, and say, right, you can go and distribute them. So that's how I saw things getting cooked so quickly outside. And that's a sort of a giving things with respect to people, as people who can't avail the good food, so you distribute to them. And that's where I learnt all my techniques. And my grandma would talk about the way she would make it. She'll do this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done dal this way. So that was the way we were taught. And now that's how I teach people. I don't teach it in a sort of mass way, but we do share the recipes with the people around us. I mean, curries has become a national dish of Scotland, so that's something which we need to be very proud of. And I think we taught the Scottish people to eat curries as well. When they came first time to restaurant, they say, we don't want to eat curry with the onions in it. And they just didn't know the curry was made with onions. What they meant was they didn't want to see the onions. I think it's just because it's a good food, it's a nourishing food, and it's worth the value of your money. That's the most important thing. And is the spice, again, they're quite addictive. Once you start eating the curries, you want them. Even ourselves, if we don't eat the curry for 2 days, we want the curry, because it's a kind of an addiction. So thank God it's not an addiction to with people's health will be spoiled, but people have got the big bellies now. The community was very, very small community, and very conservative as well. Didn't want it to mix with people. People were business people, and they just wanted to keep themselves to themselves, because they felt they were business people. They didn't needed friends. They just were running themselves, and they were quite happy what they were doing. But I think thanks to a roundabout who employed one of the lady student here from Pakistan, and she actually got the people together in Edinburgh and asked the ladies to come and see them in a roundabout centre, because that was a community centre and they wanted to see. So that's where I got really involved, and she pushed me into the community. And they probably saw talent, and they wanted me to become a chair for that APWA. And that's where we took the trips for people. We got them together. We went to the councils to cover issues with them, to discuss with them. So that's where the council learnt is what the needs were, where they were just still learning, always learning about the ethnic minorities. Yet it was a point when I said, you have ruled India for 300 years, and yet you're still learning about ethnic minority. How is that? We were working with MPs who are very supportive, and they still are. And that's where I got recognized in the community. We started the Mela, Edinburgh Mela. We started the Milan, which is for elderly people. We were working with the young people. CB is something which my community work and my business work, which obviously I was asking Sarah Boyk, who's MSP, I was asking her, how come who nominated me? And she said, it's been years' work, Mrs. Unis, and It is people of Edinburgh and MSPs or councillors who keep on pursuing this to the MP. We are nominating this person and this person needs to get CBE. So that's how I've got it, and I am honored, and I think it's really, really something I feel as if I have done something good, and I'm pleased to meet the Queen, and the way she presented it and the way she spoke to me, it was really humbling. It was really good. We will always be an immigrant because my identity is Pakistani. My face shows as I am Pakistani. I dressed as Pakistani. So no matter how much I become part of the community, when people look at me, they will say she's from Pakistan or from India. No matter what you do, you can't change your identity. But we're Scottish now and would like to remain Scottish.